Dada was an art and literary movement focused on the absurd and nonsensical, with its origins in strong political reactionary messaging. It was formed in Zurich in the early 20th century during the First World War as a reaction to the horrors of chemical warfare and spread to several other hotspots in Europe and finally abroad in the United States. While the movement began as a rejection of war and battle tactics, it was also saturated with anti-capitalist and anti-bourgeoisie themes. Dada really began at a place called Cabaret Voltaire. This was a nightclub in Zurich formed in February of 1916 by Hugo Ball and his soon-to-be wife Emmy Hennings, two poets and performers who had fled Germany and settled in Zurich. The cabaret had a very short lifespan as it was closed in the summer of the same year, but in that short time, Dada was born. As is often the case, there just happened to be a number of artists, anarchists, and creatives in Zurich that were drawn to the cabaret and would become some of the most important individuals in the Dada movement. Many had been displaced from their homes in parts of Europe due to the war and found refuge in Switzerland's neutrality, so the group was comprised of a rather diverse crew. Hugo Ball was actually intent that it should not become an art movement. Part of his ideas around the group's work was anti-art and anti-movement, and it is said that members often touted the phrase, "Dada is anti-Dada." Essentially, this was ineffective, as Dada clearly became an art movement, which influenced people of the time and led to other art movements. The name Dada is said to have been chosen when Ball stuck a letter opener into a dictionary at random and chose the word it had landed on to be the title of the anti-movement. This story, which may or may not be true, does drive home the point of one of several of the main themes in Dada: nonsensical. So speaking of themes, let's take a deeper look at the themes of Dada and identifying traits of work from this era. Dada was an incredibly diverse movement, with its ideas being expressed through written works, performance, sculpture, collage, photography, painting. Among the theme I listed earlier, we can add bizarre, absurd, avant-garde, rejecting logic and reason, anti-bourgeoisie, anti-capitalism, chance, and many others. The general idea around this art movement was that nothing was out of bounds when it came to the subject matter, medium, and material used to create. So work from this movement really spans the gamut in terms of style, appearance, impact, and thought. Next, I'd like to talk about a few important individuals in the movement. Hugo Ball was considered the founder of Dadaism. He wrote the Dada Manifesto, which focused on the rejection of Dada becoming an art movement, although it was already headed in that direction. He was a pioneer in sound poetry, which is a performance style that combines phonetics, facial expressions, movements, and vocal manipulations. Interestingly, his involvement in the Dada movement was relatively short-lived. He made work and participated in performances for roughly 2 years before rejecting the movement and transitioning to a more pious life, taking up Catholicism. Emmy Hennings was a performer and poet and the partner and later wife of Hugo Ball. Unfortunately, records of her life have been overshadowed by Ball's contributions to the art world, and less information is given about her. But she did write and publish many pieces of literary work, and she figured very prominently at the Cabaret Voltaire, specifically in puppetry. She and Ball often collaborated on performances together there. Hannah Höch is another German artist. She is known for her contributions to questioning gender roles and promoting ideas of androgyny in her work. She is also credited as one of the founders of photo montage. This is a style of work that incorporates photos and images from various sources, which are cut and reconfigured in new compositions. Sophie Teuber-Arp was a multifaceted Swiss artist. She experimented with everything from painting and sculpture, dancing, interior designing, architecture, furnitures, and textiles. Her work represents her diverse interests, illustrating many different styles and themes, although she is credited as an essential developer of geometric, abstraction, and concrete art. Jean Hans Arp Sophie's husband, was another important Dada artist. Arp also made work in many forms, including poetry, painting, and sculpture, and he is known for his work using torn or pasted paper in abstraction. Johannes Bader was a German writer and artist who became interested in the Dada movement when it spread to Berlin. He was declared legally insane during the First World War because of manic depression, and as a result, he leaned into that, producing writing and performances meant to shock and confuse. He had a quite storied relationship with religion, including many controversial literary pieces, some of which mocked clergymen for their ineptitude in representing Christ to the masses. His work also included very large collage pieces which were extremely politically motivated and absurd. Although the participants in the Dada movement were outrageously anti-capitalistic and anti-art, unfortunately Dada seems to have failed to exist outside of each category. While the photo montage work that Herc made began as controversial, it soon became associated with modern styles and design work and was incorporated into consumerism. Dada is also credited as influencing the beginnings of Surrealism, which proved to further it even more into the realm of an art movement. So I want to talk about some thoughts around the terms form and function in craft and how that relates to why I chose to focus on the Dada movement. In craft, we talk a lot about the categories of form and function. We liken the form division to be more centered around art or pieces of work that are non-utilitarian. Function, therefore, necessarily refers to objects of work or work that has specific purpose. While there are a lot of crossovers in the work of craftspeople which we have studied in this course, I want to delve into another conceptualization of the melding of these categories. In this exploration, the term functional comes under scrutiny. In the craft world, when I think of function, I go immediately to a woven article of clothing or a wheel-thrown ceramic bowl, like Mackenzie's work here, something that serves a physical purpose. However, work can serve as a theoretical purpose as well, which is what we see coming out of the Dada movement. This work serves the purpose of producing anti-war sentiments, combining both form and function together. A lot of art movements drive thought and political uprising and sometimes the forming of a zeitgeist. In this way, I see the Dada movement, like many other politically minded movements, to have been successful in harnessing both a form purpose and a function purpose, driving a lot of thought and discourse around anti-war sentiments, and breaking free from the traditional territory of what was considered art.